I had a little accident the other day. I was just doing my thing, browsing the web for overpriced garbage. And I just ended up clicking on the first website that I saw. And I headed over to the controller section, because you know I like to look up my controllers. But I was doing this while sipping half a gallon of Mountain Dew. And the hand controlling the mouse slipped. Next thing you know, we've got a package that's arrived. So since it's here, I figured I'd do a little bit of an unboxing and first thoughts on the Scuf Envision Pro. I'm going to talk about everything this controller has to offer in terms of features and functions, and I'm going to go over everything that this controller does well. And then after that, I will then talk about everything that I don't like about the controller, and I will cover any reasons not to buy it. This is a wireless controller, so it does come with its own 2.4 GHz wireless dongle. Bluetooth is a nice feature to have, but not always acceptable, especially for FPS shooters. Just taking a look at the back of the controller, we've got 4 rear buttons, a rubbery textured grip, a USB-C port, a switch to switch from USB to wireless. Now 2 of the back buttons are normal buttons, and then the other 2 on the inside are actually mouse click. We've also got the triggers, and we've got this little switch underneath, which is incredibly difficult to switch over, which turns these into the mouse click triggers with the micro switches. This is definitely one of the biggest selling points for this controller. 3.5mm audio jack. Now we've got these thumbsticks. They are both different to what you'd find on an Xbox controller and also to what you'd find on a PlayStation controller. Scuf are definitely doing their own little thing here when it comes to the thumbsticks. The face buttons and the D-pad are all mouse click as well. We also get these 2 shoulder buttons as well. So in total, 6 remappable buttons just for your gameplay. And you can bind these to anything. And I was super excited for this feature and to find out exactly how well it actually works. USB-C port is recessed into the controller ever so slightly. However, it is tapered, which means you can use any USB-C cable you like. While making this video and testing out the controller, I was actually using a cable from the GameSir G7HE, and I have no doubt that you can use pretty much any cable that you want. Got a nice bit of RGB action going on here, and this is customizable. Taking a look at the rest of the things in the box here, we've got a small box and then a slightly longer one. Now this longer one, what we've got in here is the USB-C cable that's provided with your controller. Also comes with some replacement thumbsticks.
These are both domed instead of concave, and different heights as well, one longer than the other. And here's the USB-C cable. It's just your standard USB-C cable, but it comes with this adapter to adapt it to USB-C. This will be good for plugging it into one of your Android devices for a bit of mobile gaming. Really nice looking cable though. In this smaller box, what we've got here are the cover caps to blank off the extra buttons. With 6 extra buttons, surely you don't need all of them, right? Removable faceplate, magnetic, nice and easy. Gives us access to the thumbsticks to easily swap those out, and I do like a longer stick on the right hand side. In the software, we've got device memory mode and also the software mode, and the 2 differences between these is one's stored on the onboard memory of the controller and one's not. In the software we can adjust the curvature of the thumbsticks and how they react, as well as vibration intensity, the color of the RGB strip. Now in device memory mode, you are a little bit more restricted when it comes to the customizability. You can still remap your shoulder buttons and also the 4 rear paddles as well. However, you cannot remap any other button on the controller, including the 5 G keys at the bottom. If you do want to make use of that feature, you will need to have the IQ software running while you're using the controller. But as great as this software looks and feels when you're changing things and adjusting things, It is known to be a little bit buggy, and if you are running any demanding games, you are probably going to want to have it closed down, just to avoid it causing any problems. The IQ software certainly does have a little bit of a reputation of causing issues, so best to just come in here, change what you need to, and save it to the device memory. That's certainly my preferred option. Another thing is that you can't customize the RGB strip unless you do have the IQ software running as well. But you still do have access to adjusting the curves of the thumbsticks, remapping all 6 extra buttons, adjusting the intensity of vibrations or just turning it off altogether like I do, and so on. I can see this being a very popular controller for streamers, simply because you're going to have access to those G keys and you can do a lot with them. They almost work exactly the same as a Stream Deck. Now we're going to get into a bit of gameplay and I'm going to talk about how I found the controller overall. Now coming from an Xbox controller player, it did take a little bit of getting used to with the symmetrical thumbstick layout, but overall it's definitely something I can get used to over time. Maybe about a week of playing and it'll be just like any other controller. The mouse click triggers are a godsend. However, I did end up finding myself using the bumpers mainly instead of the triggers, so I swapped the inputs and just used it that way, as I found the controller a little bit more comfortable like that. The face buttons are nice, but with the 6 extra buttons, I didn't actually use them a whole lot, as you can imagine. I will say this though, I did end up blanking off the shoulder buttons just like a lot of people will do with this controller, simply because they are so easily pressed by accident. I really tried to use the controller with the shoulder buttons because I can think of so many reasons why they'd be really handy, but I could just not get away from accidentally pressing those. But despite this controller's very unique shape, it does look a little bit similar to a DualSense controller, I did find it very comfortable, especially with that high performance grip on the back. It's definitely a must-have feature on any controller that I use. I do have one big problem with this controller though, and that's going to be the thumbsticks. Now, the analog sticks themselves are nice and accurate, and very smooth as well. However, it's the thumbstick caps. Scuf's unique design, I don't know what they're thinking. They do have this kind of like texture around the edge, but that's not the part that your thumb comes into contact with. And so that extra grip from that texture is just completely irrelevant. And the center where your thumb actually comes into contact with it is totally smooth. And there's a huge lack of grip. For me, anyway. I don't know if anybody else has had this problem, but I did. All I can say is the thumbsticks that are actually supplied with the controller are a no from me. But to end this video on a positive note, the controller is comfortable when you get used to it. Both wired and using the wireless dongle, the controller is pretty fast as well in terms of input latency. No, it's not quite as fast as a DualSense or a GameSir, but it's got a polling rate of about 500 Hz and a response time of about 2 milliseconds, which again is respectable enough. So Scuf are definitely doing something right. It's comfortable, it's clicky, it's fast, responsive. There are tons of features, tons of customizability, being able to adjust the thumbstick curves to make them more dynamic, more linear, or smoother. Once you start playing around with it and fine-tuning it to your liking, makes a big difference. But just to recap on the cons of this controller, the thumbsticks suck, the thumbstick caps anyway. Also, those extra shoulder buttons having to be capped off kind of makes the whole feature pointless. But if you do end up finding a use for them, the option's there at least. And you still do have the 4 buttons on the back. So my final overview is this. Am I going to continue using this controller? Probably. I'm actually super impressed with it, even though it doesn't quite sound like it. This controller has got so much going for it that other Scuf controllers don't. More specifically, the Xbox ones, like the Instinct Pro, which is probably a great controller. However, with it being officially licensed by Microsoft, just has too high of a latency. Certainly for my use anyway. Another thing I do have to complain about is the price of this controller. When I picked it up, it was on a sale. But even on sale, I would say that's where the official price wants to be. About $150. Normally, these things are $200. And I just think that's too much of a stretch. So if you can pick up one of these on a little bit of a sale, around $150 or even less, or even pick one up on the second-hand market, one that's been taken care of and maybe still has a bit of a warranty, then sure, why not? It's a great controller and offers a lot of features. Just bear in mind, obviously, you can't use this with your PlayStation or your Xbox consoles. It is going to be PC only. I don't even think you can use this thing with your Nintendo Switch. I am going to come back to you with a 3-month review on this controller, so go ahead and hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss that upload, and we'll catch you in the next one. Ciao.